war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. The man is not free unless government is limited. An informed patriotism is what we want. But still watch closely. And don't be afraid to see what you see.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
Moretti, Underground, the Liberty Report.
And hello, America. Welcome to the Monday, January 26th, 2015 edition of Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report. We're broadcasting live from the studios of PRN Radio Network, as usual. You know, that's the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program, by the way. Hey, Watchmen. I'm Joanne Moretti, and I have an awesome co-host with me, too. His name is Scott Ferrarello, and we're happy he's tuned in. Thank you. Our call-in number is 714-888-7404. And our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here also at PRN, are open for you, too. Our colleagues, Lynn, AstroTurf, and Famous Anna are in the chats. They're putting all the links to our sources and articles and investigations and all those other important documents in there, so you have them available for your own records. Thank you, ladies, for that kind courtesy. They do a lot more than put links in the chats, by the way. They're the best research team I've ever met. And you may run into several of our other colleagues and correspondents in the chat, too. So please say hi to each other when you get over there. Man, we have a lot of news to get to today. News is breaking all over the place, but we also have a special guest tonight. His name is Mario Apuzzo. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Mario, but he is one of the attorneys who brought a lawsuit against Obama for the eligibility question. It was Kirshner versus Obama, but he's going to come on and talk to us not only about that, but, there's a lot of questions about other candidates, Ted Cruz being one of them. So if there's something we better figure out, we better figure it out now, right? Anyhow, we have a lot to catch up on, but before we even go that far, excuse me, I have a disclaimer to do. And that just tells everybody, of course, that whatever we say here on this show is solely my responsibility and not that of our wonderful, wonderful sponsors, the Watchmen of America or PRN. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN radio network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, anything else of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, either in past, present, or even future broadcasts. Also, this show is probably rated PG-13, and we don't do any hardcore cussing or anything. We don't even get risque, but the information's above most kids' heads, and you know your kids, so just treat them accordingly. All right, now that we have all that out of the way, let me get Scott on the line here, and we'll give him a proper hello, and then we'll start the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Ferrarello. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Joanne, how you doing tonight?
Very good, honey. Very, very good. Damn, we got a lot of news to get to today. Stuff is going on all over the place. Even, since we last talked to the people at PRN on Monday night, he had that crazy State of the Union address, Obama did. That sounded more like something you'd hear at an ACORN office by a community organizer than an actual president of the United States. I mean, what was he, running for class president here with his list of unicorn wishes? Surprised he didn't throw in a pony for all the good little boys and girls, too. It was just insane. I can't even have words to describe it. But
well, he's after doing this interview with this Gloella or whatever her name is, I don't know. I think his whole regime is turning into Caniglia. He's going to start swearing at horses and stuff. I don't know. Yeah, now Glozell, right? I don't know. Everybody's getting down on her. I'm sure she was pulled into it somehow. Do you know she's actually a very intelligent woman? She is a businesswoman. She's an incredible comedian. I got turned on to her, I don't know, maybe a year ago. Somebody posted one of her videos. Oh, yeah, really. I watched it, and first I thought it was real. I thought it was, some welfare queen. And then it dawned on me, here she is. She's taking on these characters. Something like you'd see in Saturday Night Live. They do character acting, too. But she takes these stereotypical characters and she makes them incredibly funny, but I think actually she's goofing on them. But, him, he is going for a free ride on her popularity. She has over 5 million hits on her videos. This chick knows what she's doing. She's a good comedian. She does stand-up, too. She's also... Still, can you imagine John F. Kennedy going on, Henny Youngman show?
On Carol Burnett, yeah.
Yeah, Carol Burnett, doing a skit with Tim Conway. I mean, come on. He's just turned this into a joke. It's bad enough to go on the Tonight Show, but at least they're, somewhat try to be serious. I mean, it's ridiculous. Pretty soon they're going to be doing cameos in, Three Stooges movies and stuff. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I understand that, and it's him. It's him that's trying to go on a free ride on her coattails. He's trying to woo those millennials back. They want nothing to do with him anymore. They think he's an idiot. And he's trying to woo them back. So he's trying to, hijack their entertainment.
Why would he need to woo them back? He does whatever he wants. Doesn't matter what his approval rating, like Congress. They're 6 to 8%, and they just stay the course. So does it really matter? Unless he's running for another term, or pretend to run for another term.
I think he wants to be king of the world. Anyhow, it was an embarrassment all around. I can't believe that the President of the United States went on there. He didn't talk about important things. He talked about his wish list like he was, Billy Brown writing a letter to Santa Claus. But I don't know. It's crazy.
Did he at least take a bath in milk and Fruit Loops with her? I mean, come on, tell me he at least did that much.
No.
No.
No, he didn't even do that. She.
Wow.
I know. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm just so embarrassed now. I couldn't be more embarrassed than I am. I just want to. When I see all these other leaders on TV, I just want to hide, so we don't have to talk to them.
Yeah, if I was ever overseas and somebody asked me what country I was from, I'd probably tell them, I don't know, Kazakhstan or something. Just so they wouldn't link me to this idiot.
I'd tell them Boston and hope they didn't know it was part of America at the time.
Right.
Obama has no control over that. It's its own country. Hey, we got some breaking news just before the show began. There's a missing Cobb County, Georgia couple with a husband and wife. Their name is Runyon. They went to go look, Bud Runyon and June Runyon, 69 and 66 years old. They're from Marietta, Georgia. They were last seen on Thursday. They were leaving for Telfair County, which is south of Macon, to buy a car that they had found listed on Craigslist. It was a 66 Mustang. Mr. Runyon had one before he went to Vietnam, and it ended up getting sold on him, and he was, trying to track one down. They must have told him bring cash or something. They've been missing since then. Well, just before we went on the air, 2 bodies have been located. So this does not have a happy ending. It says 2 bodies believed to be those of missing Cobb County couple were found Monday, sheriff's officials said. This is from WSB-TV2. Police found the bodies along with the couple's SUV in a pond in Telfair County. Telfair County Sheriff Chris Stevenson said the bodies were those of a man and a woman. Bud Runyon, 69, and June Runyon, 66, of Marietta were last seen Thursday. My heart goes out to the Runyon family. We've done everything we possibly could to get this family found, get their parents found. Unfortunately, it's a sad outcome, but hopefully there will be some closure knowing that they've been located. They arrested some guy and charged him with falsifying information to police. They believe that he has something to do with it, and this isn't his first rodeo. Other people have said that he puts false ads on Craigslist and then he robs the people, tells them bring cash. So the case is open, but the sad news is that the bodies have been found. Blizzard. There's a blizzard coming up that coast, hard and fast. It's going to hit from between the D.C. area and all the way up into Maine. I guess they're expecting hurricane-force winds on the Cape. As we speak, the emergency bans have come into effect. Roads are closing all over the place. Mario Cuomo, the governor of New York, said he wanted all the trucks off the road, off the main roads by 6 p.m., so that has passed. And at 8 p.m., the towing went into effect for all the way from New York to Maine, but Boston I know of for a fact. All the planes are out of Logan Airport. Everything is canceled. I know that for a fact, too. And the storm is expected to have 65 to 90-mile-an-hour winds, 2 to 3 feet of snow across the whole Northeast, 0 visibility on the roads overnight tonight, and with like 2 to 4 inches falling per hour. That's an inch every 15 minutes. 18,000 flights have been canceled. I saw a photograph of these huge lines in front of Whole Foods in Manhattan. What the hell? They've known about this for a while. Why are all these big lines there? People, stocking up. But preppers don't have to worry about that, do they? People who live prep, they don't have to worry about that. But there's some important things that you have to remember, especially about when you shovel out your car. Make sure you shovel out the tailpipe. You don't want that carbon monoxide backing in, just coming back into the car. If you get stuck out there in the road, in your car, you should have a shovel, you should have some rock salt, you should have snacks, water, a blanket, some sterno and a lighter, a flashlight, a colored rag, so if you get buried. During the blizzard of 78, we had to literally dig down to get to the cars because of the snow drifts. If you're looking at, 65 to 90 mile an hour winds, there's going to be snow drifts. Check your neighbors. Absolutely check your neighbors. And make sure if you see, stray pets out there, bring them in or at least give them some shelter or something. Bring them up on your porch and put a cardboard box out there to shelter them. Get an old blanket or an old comforter or something and put it out there. This isn't your first rodeo. 2 to 3 feet of snow is not a big deal in Boston. It is, but it's not like apocalyptic like the news media will have you. In the Midwest, up in Minnesota, that's a dusting.
It's normal. Yeah, it's normal. People in Montana are jogging in this stuff. It's those wusses from New York that just love complaining so much.
Yeah, well, they're talking about, oh my God, we're all gonna die. No, we're not. No, we're not. Not if you do the right thing. If you're out there hot dogging and riding around in a junk box.
If we would just give Al Gore $90 trillion, this wouldn't be happening.
Well, what's he gonna do?
That's what he thinks. He's gonna turn up the sun a little bit.
Yeah, well, what's he going to do, launch some mirrors?
Global warming. I don't know. They must have a trick. He seems to think he can play God whenever he wants, and just maybe he'll just make it a nice 75 degrees over the whole United States. I don't know. What do you think they're going to do with that $90 trillion? I think they're going to spend about $1 billion of it pretending to do something for global warming, and then just pocket the rest of it.
Yeah, no kidding. This global warming is a hoax anyhow. For the last 13 and a half years, we've actually cooled a full degree. So it's a lie. We already told everybody. Obama got a $2 million grant from the Joyce Foundation to start the Chicago Climate Exchange. And as a matter of fact, the Chicago Climate Exchange purchased the European Carbon Exchange. They are running a scam. It's a wealth redistribution and keep a little for themselves type of a deal. If Al Gore was really expecting the seas to rise 4 feet and the ice caps to melt, why would he buy oceanfront property in California?
Because he's a liar and a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? There's going to be no more petrodollar, so they're probably trying to, start a new racket that they can rob everybody blind with. I mean, what else than to create a fake crisis and charge people for it?
Yeah, for real. It is a fake crisis, too.
It's ridiculous. 10 years ago, he said by 2012 we were all going to be underwater or something. I don't know what it was. It was ridiculous. And they do this. They do this. I mean, and then they have Time and Newsweek come out with covers on it, saying the same thing. And then that time comes and goes, and they never retract anything or, print a cover saying, whoops, we were wrong again, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were wrong. Well, we got billions and billions of dollars, right, out of your pockets. It's a wealth redistribution plan. They want to take the wealth that they figure these 20th century, 21st century countries, developed countries, have stolen. I don't know how they accuse us of stealing things. I even got in an argument with this over on Twitter. I'll tell you about that in a second. But, we stole all their wealth and we did all of this, and now they want it all back. And, they find all these ingenious ways to redistribute wealth, by the way. So...
Yeah, well, this is a way to tax the planet. You can just tax the planet across the board. Every country's got to pay, except for, of course, China, which doesn't have to do anything until, 2050, 2060. And then, they just exempt whoever they want, soak whoever they want. I mean, it's just, tyranny across the board. You're not going to be able to vote anybody out, not like you can now, but at least they give us the illusion that you can. I mean, once the UN and the global governance is in complete control, there's no way to get rid of the people, period.
Yeah, well, now that they're having a little powwow up there in Davos, and they're showing up to economic and climate summit. Every one of them has their own private jet. Obama made a global warming video while sitting in Air Force One. It uses like 800,000 gallons of gas just to get there. 80,000, whatever.
Well, I know, and whenever they have one of those global warming summits, they have, 40 private jets all going there. I mean, talk about hypocrites.
Yeah, and they have to. They're worried about global wealth redistribution in the poor people. Meanwhile, it's $43 for a hot tub there.
But they've been doing this, forever. I remember in the 80s, George H.W. Bush was on TV telling everybody to start conserving electricity, and he's standing there in the White House with every one of those 7,000 lights on, all at the same time. And you just look at it, it's just like, there's one set of rule for these people and one set of rule for everybody else. It's no different than that billionaire that's got 4 mansions and he's telling Americans have got to start living with less.
Yeah, we have to live with less. We want too much with all those mansions. You know what, though? Here's a story that will pique your interest. While they're up in Davos, They are talking about all these new getaways that they have been buying because they're expecting the civil unrest, widespread civil unrest, and they're all talking about where are they going to go. Check this story out from the Mirror UK. Panicked super rich buying bolt holes with private airstrips to escape if the poor rise up. Hedge fund managers are buying up remote ranches and land in places like New Zealand to flee to in the event of widespread civil unrest. It says, nervous financiers from across the globe have begun purchasing landing strip homes and land in areas such as New Zealand so they can flee should people rise up. With growing inequality and riots such as those in London in 2011 and in Ferguson and other parts of the USA, many financial leaders fear they could become targets for public fury. Let's see, Robert Johnson, president of the Institute of the New Economic Thinking, told people at the World Economic Forum in Davos that many hedge fund managers were already planning their escapes. He said, I know hedge fund managers all over the world who are buying airstrips and farms in places like New Zealand because they think they need a getaway. He said the economic situation could soon become intolerable as even in the richest countries, inequality was increasing. This article goes on, but they're starting to panic, and they're looking for their little hideaways and places they can go.
Well, sure, they bust out the joint, throw a match on it, and head off to their private, paradise.
Yeah.
That's what the president plans on doing here in 2 years, if he leaves. And that's a big if.
Oh,
he doesn't have
he's
to.
leaving.
You don't have to leave. You don't have to leave if you don't want to.
He doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to, obviously.
Who's gonna kick him out? He'll just go, FDR did this or somebody, and blah blah blah. I mean,
yeah, Bush did it, or Roosevelt did it, or Father Burke did it. Who knows?
I think it was, one of them. I forget which one did it. One of them went 3 terms.
But it wasn't him.
And
no matter
FDR.
what, no matter what anything is, it wasn't him.
The thing is that when you have a government operating with no rule of law, they can do whatever they want without ever getting any trouble. Doesn't matter. They can sit there and lie through their fangs to Congress. Doesn't matter. I mean, you get somebody that much power, they're going to use it. They're not going to say, "Oh, thanks for all the power, but I'm too humble to use it." They're going to use whatever they can get away with.
Yep. Yes, they are. Hey, last week and the week before and the week before that, we talked about these flu shots and how they were useless, and people were forcing children to get these flu shots anyhow, even though they didn't work. Well, one little girl in Las Vegas, 5 years old, she died yesterday from the flu despite receiving a vaccination for that exact strain that they said she had. So not only did the flu shots that they were giving those kids not cover this strain, that most strains, especially the one that was going around last week and the week before, this little girl got a flu that she was vaccinated for and still died. This is from Fox. A 5-year-old Las Vegas girl died Tuesday after coming down with a strain of the flu that she had been vaccinated against earlier this year. The Clark County Coroner's Office determined Kiera Driscoll died from cardiac arrest due to influenza A. Her father, Patrick, told Fox 5 Vegas that she had developed a cough and fever Sunday before being prescribed steroids and a nebulizer on Monday. Kiera later collapsed, and paramedics were unable to revive her. Patrick told the station that his daughter had received a flu shot, with her doctor confirming that she had contracted the same strain that she had been vaccinated against. So why are we giving this stuff to these kids?
Population reduction.
Yeah, well, what did she get, a placebo or something? Are they jerking around? Are they doing some sort of a study on all the kids? They're giving these kids the shots, but tracking them? I don't know.
Some of this stuff has got more mercury in it, than you can imagine. Cancer-causing agents, everything you can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them are using live virus, some of them are using dead virus.
Right.
I'm just wondering if they had, because this family was going to get their baby taken away because they didn't want the baby to get a flu shot, even though the doctor said that this flu shot is not working on the strain that's going around. They said they were going to take the baby away anyhow if you didn't give the baby this shot. So something's up. Something's up. You should be able to refuse a flu shot.
You know, you used to be able to cite religious beliefs, and that was good enough for the school system to leave your kid alone. That's what my mother did, because she didn't want them shooting me up with some live virus, all right?
Right.
Now, you know, you don't get your kid a flu shot, they can just, CPS can just come take the kid away. You won't see it again for a few months, maybe, if you're lucky. I mean,
yeah,
this
and
is
what are
I
they going to say? What are they going to say? It's going to protect your kid against dying? This kid had a flu shot.
You know,
Didn't
how
protect her.
How about the person that didn't want their kid to go through chemotherapy? They, you know,
17 years old too.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they took the kid away from the Pelletiers and that other couple in Tennessee who lost the two kids for that mitochondrial disease because two doctors had differing opinions. And they took the kid away from the parents. It wasn't even the parents who had the authority to have either one of those opinions. You know, they're gonna make it so everybody is gonna be afraid to even go to a doctor. I mean, I wouldn't go to a doctor, I'll tell you that. I mean, I'd have to be almost dead to go to a doctor. Right.
Because you know what? They start asking me personal questions I don't want to answer. I'm going to start asking them personal questions they don't want to answer.
That's interesting.
They come into your house, doctor, and search your drawers and your things, see what kind of shit or stuff you're hiding. You know, don't ask me if I have a gun. Ain't none of your business, pal.
Right. Yeah, it's not your doctor's business. Hey, switching gears here. A drone was found on the White House grounds at 3 o'clock this morning, 3:08 this morning. It wasn't really a drone. It was one of those air hog quadrocopters. As a matter of fact, I had one in my hand at Christmas time. I was going to buy it for one of my grandchildren. I ended up getting the other one, the helicopter with the Nerf things that shoot, so you can chase his sisters.
Wasn't Joe Biden? They did say drone,
it probably
right?
Was. It probably was. He probably got it for Christmas. But there was a camera on it. 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, hey, our government flies drones around all the time. It probably was the Secret Service. You know, maybe one of them got it for Christmas. But it caused a whole slew of security problems and lockdown on the compound. And, you know, it's a 2-foot wide device. It was recovered and examined. Yeah. The latest security breach at the Executive Mansion came as Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama were visiting India. But their two daughters remained behind in Washington. The Secret Service statement identified the object as a quadcopter, a commercially available drone with 4 propellers. There was an immediate alert and lockdown of the complex until the device was examined and cleared, the statement said. An investigation is underway to determine the origin of this commercially available device. Not only commercially available, you can buy them at Toys R Us and Walmart. You know, they make it sound like it was some sophisticated drone. It wasn't.
Isn't it something how the government doesn't want you to spy on them at all? But boy, they want to know how many toilet squares you're using in the bathroom. I mean, they want to know everything about you.
Yeah,
but, you know, you spy on them? How dare you? And it's like, you know, Diane Frankenfeinstein. You know, she didn't say a word when Americans were being, you know, violated. But boy, as soon as she found out they were tapping into the old Senate telephones and conversations, she went off the deep end.
Yep. Yes, she did.
That's that's probably why she released all that CIA information. It was just payback for, you know, well, I'll show you. I'll do this to you since, you know, you're spying on us.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine
lax with the rules,
you know, when closet? You know,
pretty lax with the rules when they got an attitude.
You know, that's another thing. You know, her husband needs another $1 billion like she needs another wrinkle. And here he is making another $1 billion off of some government, you know, program.
Yep.
Some government contract.
Yeah, he's selling post office buildings.
Remember when that was against the law way back when?
Yeah, well, it's not now. Nancy Pelosi's husband and son, Harry Reid's sons, Feinstein's husband, Maxine Waters' husband. He was involved in the Haiti scandal, and he was involved in the bank scandal.
Joe Biden's got the oil contracts for, Ukraine, doesn't he, or somewhere like that?
Yeah, his kid. Yeah, his kid does the energy contracts over there.
Yeah, his kid, Beau Biden, yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah. There's some weaselly stuff going on up there. Hey, a couple of planes have been grounded in the last few days, 3 that we know of. I think there was 5 total, but, they said that there were bombs on the planes, and they were very specific with the information. They said, okay, yeah, I was at the airport, and I put the bomb on this certain plane, and you were the last one out, and the information was really specific on a couple of them. One of the planes belonged to a Google executive, the one up in Seattle, Washington, and everybody had to get searched, and the plane got searched, and it cost a lot of money. Well, our colleague, Color Me Red, has been all over that, and she's been checking on them. She found some kid named Noah. They said he was 16, but his birth date, according to the documents that she found, DOX documents, it says he was 16. His name is Noah something or other, Montrovia or whatever. But as she was doing her investigation and digging even deeper, she found that this is connected to a group of kids. They call themselves Lizard Squad. As a matter of fact, Anonymous is mad at those kids because they're making a bad name for hackers. These kids are having a game on Twitter, and they're doing bomb threats and other fun stuff, and they're collecting points. If they get a plane grounded, they get so many points. So this is a game to them. When you're seeing all these bomb threats and everybody's freaking out and all of that, and then you find out it's a game, nobody's really happy about it. And I don't know if you can even find the kids. This kid Noah, he might just be somebody they landed it on. One of the links that she sent me, I was looking through some of the articles, and there was a young man. It was a picture of a young man on his Twitter handle. And one of the other kids said, "You're not part of Lizard Squad." He said, "I know." He said, "I'm an innocent bystander who just had my PayPal refused for fraudulent activities." So, I don't even know if this kid Noah is actually responsible. They might have just blamed him or used his IP address. They're actually pretty good, but now the Anonymous, they're getting really mad, and they're dropping the name Lulz Security, too. So those guys are coming after them.
They can plant something on your computer faster than you can imagine. 12 seconds, less than 12 seconds. All they got to do is hack into it, bam, and you don't even know it's there.
Yeah. So
anybody ever gets busted with any computer problems, it's already immediately suspect, because when you have an internet where the Chinese and everybody else and their brother is hacking into your stuff, there's no way to prove you put that there, but there's no way to prove there isn't either.
Right.
So
this is
they have it now in this country where you're breaking the law, even though you think you're a law-abiding citizen. You just go about your day and do normal things. You're breaking the law, and it's so whenever they feel like it, if they want to make your life a living hell, they can do it.
Scott, you can break 3 laws just going to the mailbox.
Yeah.
We have a phone caller from one of our colleagues. I'm going to open up her microphone for a second, and then we'll get back to the news, but it must be important because she's got her hand raised. 318, you're live.
Hey, one of our Facebook friends, who's very credible, said that O'Reilly just said that Bergdahl is being charged with treason, but I cannot find a link to verify that.
Ooh, I was expecting that to come out on Friday as a document dump.
Well, it's one of our more notable Facebook friends, and she says Bergdahl has been charged with desertion. Excuse me, not treason. Bergdahl has been charged with desertion. She says, here's what I got off his Twitter feed from Tony Schaffer. The investigation of Sergeant Beau Bergdahl, who was traced with 5 Taliban terrorists, has been stonewalled from the press from the beginning. Tonight we have some stunning new information about the controversial swap. Tony Schaffer said he's charged with desertion.
Okay, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaffer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
you're right. I'm looking Yep, I'm looking at it now. It's breaking now as we speak. Nice job, Ida.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, I was expecting that Birdall report for Friday as a document dump, but Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer just spilled the beans. That's pretty good. Scott, something must be up for them to release that. There must be something that they want us not to talk about, because this Birdall release in the beginning of a week is a big deal.
Right.
That's a big deal.
But everybody
so we better start looking around and see what the bigger deal is.
Right.
Yeah, they would have wanted to bury that to keep us from talking about it, unless there's something else bigger going on, so that we have to talk about this. It's a trade-off.
Oh, that's what the whole deflate gate's about. I mean, can you believe it?
Yeah.
The biggest two stories in the mainstream media for the last 2 weeks, or the last week, has been Fruit Loop Lady and Deflate Gate.
Mm-hmm. And neither one of them is a flea on a dog's rear end.
Right.
In comparison to the big picture.
None of it changes our lives one iota. None of it changes any of our lives, okay? But, it's just to me, I mean, we used to have a press. At least it felt like we did. And now it's all Entertainment Tonight. It's not even that. It's like, it's like Enquirer television.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering if this story that broke with Richard Grinnell and, what the heck is the girl's name on Fox, the foreign policy, Jennifer Griffin? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't watch.
Yeah, well, she broke a story. Plus, we got another breaking story too from David Codrea. She says that Al-Qaeda agent floated in a swap for U.S. prisoners. You remember all those meetings that were going on up in Qatar with Hillary and with Valerie Jarrett especially and John Kerry? Well, they were talking about prisoner swaps. So, Obama confirmed the negotiations and prisoner swap from the White House Rose Garden in May of 2014. Says, I'm also proud of the tireless work of our diplomats and for the cooperation of the government of Qatar in helping to secure Bo Birdall's release. So they have been talking about prisoner swaps for a while with Al-Qaeda and with the Taliban and with ISIS. Says it's difficult policy to be sure, but if your loved one is taken hostage by Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, or ISIS, or any other group, after all, family members of hostages will do almost anything to see their loved ones returned home. But experts are almost unanimous in their belief that the overall U.S. government policy should stand unequivocally against prisoner swaps for hostages and negotiations with our enemies. The article goes on about the 5 Taliban swapped for Birdall, and he's a deserter. Obama knew he was a deserter. Everybody knew he was a deserter. But they swapped him anyhow. That's because they wanted to swap him. They want to get rid of all the Gitmo detainees, and any way they can do it, they will. He just released another 5 last week. And some of these negotiations were for the blind sheik. Now, isn't that what happened in Benghazi? That's what Admiral Lyons said. Now, Admiral Lyons is like a 40-year career military man. He wouldn't come out and say just something off the wall like a kooky old uncle, sitting in his rocking chair on his porch. That's not this guy. And he said that the reason that even Stevens was involved to begin with was because they were going to try to pull off a fake kidnapping, and then they were going to swap Stevens for the blind sheik. But when the Navy SEALs showed up from the consulate down the street, the people who were kidnapping the Stevens thought that Obama had betrayed them, and that's why they killed Stevens. Plus, they were running guns. That exposed the gun-running operation at the consulate. And also remember Paula Broderick, the one who was accused of messing around with General Petraeus. She said there were prisoners being held there at that consulate, too. So, there's a lot more to this. And they've been playing this game with swapping prisoners. Obama is not working for us. It's definitely not
he's sure working
for
the enemy. He's sure working for the enemy, and he's doing a bang-up job destroying this country, what's left of it. So, and nobody does anything about it, and the Republicans don't do anything about it. And, what are you going to do? Except all we can do is complain.
Up until now, the Republicans had all they could do to hold on. Let's see what they do now. But, with this stuff going on, we better be careful because look at Yemen. In September, Obama said, well, Yemen is a success story. Yeah, if you're Al-Qaeda. It's not a success story for the Western civilization at all.
Just think about it. Think about just the part where he's releasing the worst of the worst in a place where we built a prison, especially for the worst of the worst, who are going on to becoming leaders that are killing our own troops and the global enemy. I mean, just think about that.
Plus, they have to have some sort of a network going on inside Gitmo because you don't just leave there after being there for 10 years and walk into a position where you're the leader in, say, Baghdad. How the hell did that happen? You've been out of the loop for 10 years, and now all of a sudden you're that caught up that you could lead this operation. I don't know, man. Something's more to this. I'm not getting it.
They can when they're being briefed by the people that are on the ground, and I don't know. Who knows? It's probably a training camp for them. It's probably like Club Med or something. It's some kind of training camp. It's hard to tell since we're all told one thing, and something happens and we're told the opposite. Who knows what's real anymore? I mean, there isn't one news pundit on TV that I trust. I mean, not one of them. If you're on TV, you're probably, you might be thinking that you're reporting on good information, but it's probably being spoon-fed to you from someone that only wants that part of it released,
Yeah. We're going to get into a lot more about Obama when Mr. Apuzzo shows up. He'll be here right at our second hour at 9. So we're going to be talking about all of this with him, as well as the legitimacy things and the Ted Cruz stuff, too. We're going to get to that. You all know that the Saudi king died. We told you that in September that he was in a coma, and that then we told you with a follow-up story that he had died. They didn't report it until they had all their markers and their ducks in order. But the guy's been dead for a while.
Well, it's probably hard to tell, It's probably like a Weekend at Bernie's type thing. They just propped him up, put a grin on his face. Nobody really knew,
Yeah, well, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, his father was the acting king while King Abdullah was in the coma and sick and all that. Actually, he's been the acting king now for a couple of years. But Prince Al-Walid has been Obama's sugar daddy since Harvard. And he's the one that owns into Fox News, too. He also owns into Citibank. So, he's got it all over the place. But you know what? The Pentagon now, first of all, I want to tell you that Obama cut his trip short. Biden was going to go over to the King's funeral memorial. But Obama's going instead. He's cutting his trip to India short. He's not going to be able to visit the Taj Mahal this time. They're not going to have to build remember they had to build a tube from the hotel to the Taj Mahal so he wouldn't have to walk in public, and they took the coconuts off the trees so they wouldn't fall on his head. Well, he doesn't have to do that this time. Michelle is traveling with him in India. I don't know if she's going to go to Saudi Arabia. I got some thoughts about that. In the meantime, the Pentagon has created an essay contest to honor the Saudi king. What? First of all, why would the Pentagon be bothering with an essay contest for kids and honoring the Saudi king? 17 of the 19 hijackers were Saudis. Saudi is the number one state sponsor of terrorism throughout the world.
We've been fighting their wars for 40, 50 years,
Women can't even drive in Saudi Arabia. They can't travel unless they have a male family member with them. If they get raped Well, they shouldn't have done whatever it was, show a little ankle or wrist or something. And here's our Pentagon having an essay contest to honor them. I could see teaching children other cultures, but honoring them?
And you never hear anything bad about them hardly in the news because they keep it out of the news. And, I mean, they are one of the worst, if not the very worst, Muslim regime over there. I mean, they got so much money, they play bumper cars with Lamborghinis and just throw them away, I mean, it's ridiculous. And, I think, I know why Obama's mad about it, though. I think he had just broke in those pair of knee pads for the king, and now he's got to go break in a new pair.
Okay. You're right. But, this guy that took over, he said that he's going to continue the same policy that Abdullah had, but he's going harder with the Sharia law. They got a guy over there as a journalist. He was sentenced to 1,000 lashes. They've already given him 100 and almost killed him. You got some people even volunteering to take some of his lashes for him. That's how bad this is. They stone women. They crucify and hang and behead gays. So I don't think we should be honoring these people until you actually tell the truth and who these people are. We have another phone call from another one of our colleagues. I'll open up her microphone and we'll see what she has to say real quick, and then we'll continue. If I can get her microphone open. Red, ladies and gentlemen, Color Me Red is online. Hey, Red, what's going on?
Well, there's just a couple of things, and this isn't about the lizard group. This is about news that's just being totally omitted. One was yesterday, and I think you caught it, on the grid in Pakistan, that terrorists took down the grid, and they were without power for many, many, many hours. They're still restoring at this point. There was so little coverage, if none, on the news. And that's huge because it gives me concern about our own power grid. It could happen. The other thing that happened, too, today was huge. I mean, huge. And this was the liberation of Kobani. I mean, where was the coverage? I mean, this is exciting news. You've got
they don't want to tell you that the Kurds had liberated themselves, that they actually had a win against ISIS.
Yeah, they had a win. The ISIS actually turned their tails and ran the hell out of there. And they, I'm serious. And then it's funny because on a few of their pages, they say, "Oh no, we weren't defeated. We retreated." They lost a lot. The casualties. Well, they lost like 6,000. In Kobani. That's a lot.
Yeah, well, they're afraid of the women, the Kurdish women.
Well, they're terrified. Well, because then they won't go to heaven and get their 72 virgins, which they won't anyway. But that kind of destroys the whole Sharia concept for them, because that's the Sharia thing. And
absolutely.
But anyways, but why wasn't it covered? Is that not a huge story?
Oh, it's absolutely a huge story, but they're rooting for the other side. So,
well, obviously.
Yeah, so they're not going to tell you any type of a success like that. All the news we're getting is just so convoluted. It's very hard to try to keep track of it. Red, I want to thank you for calling in. I'm sorry.
I want to get a quick opinion from Scott on what do you think?
No, he muted himself for a second.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
No, I think about the ISIS thing, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't fit into the theme of the all-powerful got to be afraid of the new boogeyman.
That's true.
They
true too.
They don't want to defeat these people. They want to use them to take down governments like Syria, like they've been doing with Al Qaeda for all these other regimes. The reason why ISIS is making ground in Syria is because now they got their own air force. Us.
Yeah, well, the reason, that you're right. The reason that they're gaining ground is because we're allowing it. They are still fighting with weapons that we provided. We wouldn't provide them with weapons that we couldn't overtake. We could overpower them. And as a matter of fact, we're going to get into that because how many times on this show have we told everybody that there's mission creep going on? Do you know there's 1,000 paratroopers on their way over to Iraq? Do you know that we're amassing troops in Africa as we speak and have been right along? Everybody thinks they're over there for the Ebola outbreak. That's over. But the troops are still there because we're amassing these troops. They said that they're going to be there for training. Well, you saw how well that went last time, right? As soon as we left and the boogeyman showed up, they dropped their weapons and joined the boogeyman. So obviously we didn't train them well. They said that they're going to be sending 400 Syrian rebels into Syria, but we're going to train them. And we're going to send 400 in there. Did anybody bother to mention that there's a guy named Assad who runs that country? So they're going to go into Syria and fight ISIS. Assad's going to kill them before they get anywhere near ISIS. That's a sovereign country. Did anybody, bother to bring that up?
They don't. They don't care. And the thing about Pakistan, they want these hard-line terrorist groups to have nuclear weapons. So they do this power grid thing, and it looks like, who knows, maybe who's behind it, I mean, they ever take over Pakistan or allow them to take over Pakistan, then you got something to worry about. Not Iran, Pakistan. They're already set up.
Yeah, well, let's do a little backtracking here for a second. Start with Egypt. In Egypt, we did all kinds of investigation. We found out that Acorn International was working over there. Soros and his Renaissance and his Open Society and all his little groups. The Tides Foundation is over there. That's the same usual suspects. Tides is run by Drummond Pike. He's an original Weather Underground. Acorn is run by Wade Rathke, another original, not Acorn, he's a Weather Underground too, Students for Democrat Society. You have Soros, you all know who he is. I mean, he's the biggest slimeball around. Right. Now, all these same people, all these same groups. Oh, we got feedback. Red, I gotta put you on mute because we're getting feedback when I opened up your microphone. But you'll be able to hear us if you need to call back in and raise your hand again. Okay. Let's see if this helps with the feedback. Everybody's getting feedback. All right. Anyhow, in the Ukraine, the same groups. Soros' Renaissance Foundation. He originally started in the 70s and 80s with his Orange Revolution. The Ukraine had a democratically elected government. Soros, with the help of Obama's USAID, and the Clintons are involved in that too, and all these little organizations that they have, they overthrew the president of Ukraine and put retreads from Soros's original Orange Revolution in there. So that's what got Putin all upset to start with. And then they had this thing going on the other day in Mariupol, and it was the Soros people who were doing it, and they were blaming it on the Russians. As a matter of fact, there's a video of a reporter chasing down a guy in camouflage with a black mask on. He answers her in perfect American English. Get out of my face.
Yeah.
What's he doing there?
Well, they do that every time. Remember when they tried to blame the chem weapons on Assad? The first round they tried to invade Syria? They tried to blame him for it. It was them that did it.
All right, they did the same thing with Occupy, the exact same groups, the Acorns, the Unions, the Soros people. Again, they did it in Ferguson. We already proved that Lisa Fithian was there training people on the ground. All right, so now they're trying a revolution here. They're doing it in Israel as we speak, working with the Likud party against Bibi. In Greece, and, you saw all the riots there and stuff. Again, the same exact usual suspects, Soros and his cronies and the USAID and the whole crap. Venezuela, even Cuba. It's the same people. We all have to learn this. With the Egypt thing, back to Egypt, April 6th youth movement. They had invited all of these people who were going to overthrow Mubarak for the Muslim Brotherhood, and including the Muslim Brotherhood. They had this big summit in D.C. Hillary was there. Whoopi Goldberg was there. A bunch of people from the State Department were there. They trained all these foreign students. They gave them all kinds of money. They gave them computers and Internet access, all kinds of stuff they gave these kids to overthrow Mubarak and put the Muslim Brotherhood in there. those kids actually helped out getting rid of the Muslim Brotherhood, too. But if you saw January 25th, yesterday, Muslim Brotherhood had all their protesters out there. Some girl got killed, and that was a way to start it all over again. You know, that was the candle to spark the flame with. So if you do the research enough, it all comes back to the same core people, the same core groups. They are globalists, all right, and they're global communists. Look at things.
Yeah, well, I'm worried who Soros is handing the baton over to since he's retiring.
His son Jonathan is already the heir apparent. He's got 5 sons, but we're watching he's actually his 3rd child. The rest of them, I guess, are idiots or greedy or stupid or whatever. But Jonathan Soros is the one who's the heir apparent. However, you know, look at Cuba. Obama, last Thursday at his State of the Union, said, and we liberated the Cuban people. No, he did not. He didn't do a damn thing for the Cuban people. What he did was for Castro. What did he do for the Cuban people? Nothing. Castro's still in power.
It's not going to change anything anyway. I mean, you know, the Russians have been their friends for this whole time. They're not going to all of a sudden turn on the Russians and be our buddy because, you know, we happen to have a traitor in our own country. They're just going to take whatever they can get, you know, still treat their citizens like dogs, and still play house with the Russians. I mean, it's not going to change anything. So I don't even know what the whole purpose was for it. Maybe Michelle likes Cuban cigars or something. I don't know.
No, it's because he's been sending all his little cronies over there, working with. Oh, I got to tell you some more about Cuba too. Working with Castro, he's already sent his. Bill Ayers has been over there. Bill Ayers' kid. Well, it's not his actual kid. It's his adopted kid. He's over there. He's actually down in Venezuela too. That's where the kid is from, but he was over in Cuba. They sent people like Johnny Depp and Wesley Snipes and Sean Penn over there.
Boy.
You know, these are the ambassadors of goodwill. Meanwhile, Russia has a spy ship over there. It's been over there for years. Every single word that was said to and from Castro, does anybody here actually believe that Russia doesn't know about it, Putin doesn't know? Of course he does. He was probably sitting in the meetings, his representative was sitting in the meetings, pretending to be a Cuban rebel. You know, and Russia has long-standing treaties with Cuba. So, again, they're working behind our back with the communists. They did nothing for the Cuban people. No. Now, we also have this stuff going on with Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu. All right? Obama never had any intention on meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, not at Davos, not at any UN summit, not even when he's in this country for other business. He made him use the back door and have dinner by himself last time. So Bibi accepted an invitation from our Congress, and everybody's flipping out. Well, no one's flipping out about Cameron being there last week for the same exact reason, lobbying Congress to drop the sanctions. Bibi will be there to lobby Congress to advance and make more sanctions.
You know, I used to be completely on Israel's corner here, but you know, you got to think. You look at history. You see, Iran hasn't attacked anyone in 100 years, okay? The only time they were at war was with Iraq, and that was after we installed Saddam Hussein, by the way, and gave him all those, you know, chem weapons, etc., that he actually used on his own people, okay? Now, if a bully threatens to beat you up, you don't have a right to go over to that bully's house and kill him because you think he's a threat, he's going to hurt you. You got to wait till he actually does something to warrant that.
Yeah,
so
but, you know, there are things.
You know what? I don't want Iran to have, you know, that kind of power. I don't want them to have a bomb and whatnot. But who are we to be the world police to dictate what other countries get?
Yeah, but you're not taking into consideration. You're not taking into consideration how many times Ahmadinejad said that
so
Israel's
what?
the little Satan and America's
It's
the big
words.
Satan, and they won't. They
It's
tell
words.
us all the time what they want those nukes for.
It's words.
In,
it's nothing else. It's rhetoric.
But that's not true
Okay?
either. Iran is sponsoring a lot of this terror that's going on. Iran sponsors the Palestinian terrorists, the Hezbollah, the Hamas, all of them. You know so
what?
then they're working in the
sponsor,
background for these too.
And we sponsor who? We sponsor Al Qaeda. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. You know, who is above and beyond that of reproach? And we used to have a moral high ground. We didn't use torture. We didn't attack countries that didn't attack us first. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. We actually went through Congress to declare war. No, not anymore. Now we just go in and railroad a country and turn it into Detroit like we did Libya. I mean, like I said, I'm always on Israel's side usually, but, you know, who are we or them to tell these other countries what they can have or what they can't, unless they are attacking the United States. You know, say they take up some ground in Mexico or Canada, like we've done in the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, Putin's got a right to be mad. You know, we're knocking on his doorstep.
What do we do? What do we do if we say, okay, we're all going to back off and we're going to leave Iran alone, and then Iran nukes one of its neighbors, like Israel? What are we going to do? Say, oops?
No, then you actually got something. But that's just it.
That doesn't help.
They don't want to die any more than anyone else. I don't care what they say. That's why these mullahs end up being, 100 years old. Do you think they want to die? They're like Kim Jong-un. All he does is jump up and down and make threats. I'm going to come over and poke you in the eye.
I respectfully disagree. I respectfully disagree on that, because they tell us all the time what they want to do. And
well, you know what?
But listen, their religion tells them the greatest thing they can do is to get rid of us. They're trying to please Allah.
Well, you know what?
We can't talk them out of that. That's the true
story.
Someday,
very, very soon, the United States isn't going to be number one superpower anymore. It's going to be a global government, and there are going to be China is going to be us. And what are you going to do when they start doing this kind of stuff to us and our allies? They're going to say, hey, you know what, Israel? You attacked Syria on such and such a date, and you attacked this place on such and such a date, and America, you just pretty much destroyed the Middle East. So, we don't want you to have any weapons anymore because you can't handle them. Are you going to be okay with that? That's what I mean.
No. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We don't have the moral high ground anymore.
We have to cut this short because our guest is here. But before I can take our guest on, I have to do a quick commercial break. And as soon as we get back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be entertaining Mario Apuzzo, and there's a lot of things we have to talk about with him. So let me put this commercial on, go get yourself something to drink, and come right back, because as soon as you get back, Mario Apuzzo will be here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, right here at PRN Radio Network, the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me, and we have a very special guest today. His name is Mario Apuzzo. So I'm going to open up his microphone and introduce him to you guys, and he can tell you why he's here, and then we're going to get into some discussion about Obama, the eligibility, and some eligibility on some other people that are very popular at this moment. So without any further ado, welcome, Mario.
Hello, Joanne. Nice being with you and with your audience.
Oh, thank you so much. Mario, why don't you give our audience a little bit of a bio on yourself, tell them who you are, and let them know about, the case that you had before the court and a little information on that.
Surely. Well, my name is Mario Apuzzo. I'm an attorney licensed in the state of New Jersey. I graduated from Wilkes University in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I went to Temple University School of Law in Philadelphia. After that, I got a diploma in Advanced International Legal Studies out of the University of the Pacific. I studied in Salzburg, in Milan, Italy, International Law, in Rome, Italy. I've been in private practice in New Jersey for 31 years. Over that, I'm admitted to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and to the United States Supreme Court. I do both civil and criminal practice, and much of my practice also involves constitutional issues. I've been following, studying, researching the eligibility issue under Article 2. Since about December 2008. And at that point, I got involved in the question of whether Mr. Obama was an Article 2 natural-born citizen. Having said that, if you want me to continue more, go ahead. I don't want to just keep talking.
Yeah, let's do a little background on your case. He was Kirshner. Was it Kirshner versus Obama? Was that the title of it?
Yes. Yes, okay. That was the first case that I handled. That was for Commander Charles Kirshner. Mr. Kirshner asked me to represent him, and we filed an action against Mr. Obama and also Congress. We stated that Mr. Obama was not a natural-born citizen. One issue was that he had yet to present his bona fides, his documents, birth certificate, showing, where he was born, who he was, number one. And we also argued that he could not be a natural-born citizen, even if he was born in the United States, because he didn't satisfy the definition of a natural-born citizen, which was used by the framers when they drafted the Constitution. That definition existed under the common law at that time, and it was defined as a child born in a country to parents who were its citizens at the time of the child's birth. That right. Definition has been confirmed through various cases by the Supreme Court and strongly confirmed by Minor versus Happersett in 1875. The unanimous Supreme Court defined a natural-born citizen in that fashion. So that was the case. Okay, now you want to ask me another question?
Yeah, I was talking to you when we first met, and I was asking about that birth certificate because everybody knows it's a fraudulent certificate. It was layered. Actually, we even had it checked with our own colleagues, and they found the same as everybody else, that it was not an original birth certificate. But how come they didn't use that as evidence in court? What reason did they give that? I remember that his lawyer, Kathy something or other, was in there arguing that it shouldn't be brought into court and, practically admitting that it was a fraud. Could you give them a little detail on that?
All right. Now, what's happening now, there were other cases that I was involved with. The Kirshner case, we never had a hearing in court. The court ruled on standing that the plaintiffs did not have standing. So we never got into the actual evidence, nothing with respect to the merits, what the definition of a natural-born citizen is, that sort of thing. It was standing, and standing, basically the court said that the plaintiffs, which included Mr. Kirshner, were not injured by having to live under a president who was not a natural-born citizen. Now, the court had to assume that he was not a natural-born citizen because that's what we argued in our paper. So on a motion to dismiss, the court has to assume your facts, and that's not an unreasonable fact to be assumed because that's basically what we argued, that he was not a natural-born citizen. So the court said, even if he's not a natural-born citizen, he's not injured. You're not injured. That's kind of a strange idea to think that the framers put in the Constitution natural-born citizen clause, which is a national security provision, and then the court to say that people like, the plaintiffs in the Kirshner case were not injured, even if the commander-in-chief of the military and the president is not a natural-born citizen. So now, what you're referring to there about somebody saying that the birth certificate that was on the web was not a document, that was in New Jersey. That was the Purpura and Moran versus Obama case. That was started in the administrative law in New Jersey. It was a ballot challenge. And basically there was very interesting. The whole trial is on YouTube. So you could actually see the proceedings there, the arguments of counsel and how the judge ruled. But basically there, just addressing what you said, Joanne, I was ready to call an expert who was going to argue that the image that we see on the Internet of the birth certificate that came out in, 2011, when Obama released his first. Yeah, he released it.
Right.
I argue that that particular image is not a reliable image, and we cannot use that as evidence in a court of law because there are too many questions revolving around that particular image. So I had an expert who was going to testify that it was not a reliable piece of evidence. Then what happened is Mr. Obama's attorneys, they conceded that the particular birth certificate that's on the Internet, that it is not evidence, that it was not to be used, that they were not relying upon it in New Jersey. They conceded that there was no evidence whatsoever in New Jersey regarding who Mr. Obama was, where he was born, and that the reason why they were willing to make that concession is that they contended that it didn't matter where he was born, who he was born, because anybody can run for president in New Jersey, and the judge even said, "Oh yeah, even Mickey Mouse can get on the ballot and run for president." I mean, I'm not making this up. This is real stuff. And so then the judge said, "Okay, we have a stipulation, a concession that there's no evidence whatsoever existing in New Jersey as to who this person is, what his name is, where he was born. We have that concession. There is no evidence." But then at the end of the case, the judge ruled that Mr. Obama, considering that he was born in the United States, it doesn't matter who your parents are, you're a natural-born citizen. So, first there's no evidence where he was born, and then he says, considering that he's born in the United States. So, I mean, these are some of the things that, I've had to put up with, going through this process. So that explains to you what happened there with this, this image that we all know about this image, which is supposed to be the birth certificate. So that's what happened on that.
Yeah, so on the one hand, they're telling us that is his birth certificate, but when he's in court, they're saying, well, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, right. They said, we don't care what the image is. It's not evidence. We're not relying upon it. And I made sure before I withdrew my expert witness that they conceded that there was absolutely no evidence in New Jersey of a birth anywhere in the United States, that particular image that everybody's relying upon is not evidence. They conceded that, but the court still found that he was born in the United States.
Yeah, well, I don't know how they did that. And the cases of standing, too. Did we ever find out exactly who might have standing? Because as far as I can see, nobody has standing to challenge this, at least according to the courts.
Well, a very simple case of somebody having standing would be, for example, let's say Mr. Obama won the election, right? And then the Republican candidate, which was, let's say like even Romney a second time, but that the person, McCain, being the first time around, he would definitely have standing. But it's a very limited concept because. What if that particular candidate doesn't want to file the lawsuit? Okay, what about the rest of the citizens?
Right.
I contend that the rest of the citizens, I mean, in my case it was Mr. Kirshner and the other plaintiffs, that they were injured because the natural-born citizen clause is, again, it's a safety clause, a national security clause. You're forced to live under the power of a person who the founding father says we can't trust with the great singular powers of the president and of the military. I mean, that's why they put that there. They wanted, all future persons who are going to be president, they have to be natural-born citizens. And again, that's allegiance. The whole concept of natural-born citizen clause is allegiance. And that was the makings of the revolution. If you deny the meaning of the natural-born citizen clause, you're denying that we even had a revolution, the American Revolution, which we went from being a subject of the king to giving your consent to being allegiance, volitional allegiance. I mean, that's a whole, I can get to that too, but there's a lot of aspects to this, but, okay, go ahead. I don't want to, just keep going here. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. But, I would presume that each of us who are living under the under the direction of an ineligible president would be considered harmed, especially given, all right, Obamacare. That he signed that bill. You could be put in jail if you don't pay your Obamacare or your fines. Even the first person who gets put in jail can prove that they were harmed, right?
Yes. That's another very good way to get standing. Some kind of criminal law that Obama signed, and then the person challenges the law, saying that it's not a valid law because under our Constitution, the president has to review a law that's proposed by Congress, passed by both houses. He has the veto, and it assumes that you have a valid, legitimate president to do that. So he could either not do nothing, and which it makes it go into law, or veto it. So an argument could be made there with a criminal law or any kind of law that makes you pay anything, it could be a tax, of course, Obamacare, any kind of financial penalty of some sort. But nobody has tried that I'm aware of, doing standing in that fashion. But I think that could be a valid argument for standing, that type of an approach.
Yeah, because, somebody's got to get in there with standing. All right, let's cause a little controversy here, because you know that conservatives absolutely love Ted Cruz, including me. I think that he should stay where he is because he's in a solid seat. But if he runs for president, you know that the left is going to crucify him with eligibility issues. And before I come on the air, I saw an article by conservatives already starting the parade. We don't even have to worry about the left. The right is already tearing into him on it. Could you tell our listeners, what is the definition of a natural-born citizen, and how does that apply to Ted Cruz?
Okay, the definition of a natural-born citizen is a child born in a country to parents who were its citizens at the time of the child's birth. The definition was confirmed by Emeril Vattel in the Law of Nations, Section 212. In 1758, was written in French. Vattel was a Swiss. And then in 1797, we have an English translation, which actually uses the word natural-born citizen. Now, the framers, many of them, founders and framers, they read French, they read the concepts, they were able to read Vattel's. There are several U.S. Supreme Court decisions which cite Vattel, quote Vattel, give his definition of a natural-born citizen. The most notable later on, I'm not going to get into every one, but the later one is Minor versus Happersett, 1875. The court says that children born in the country of citizen parents are natural-born citizens. They're natives or natural-born citizens. That's exactly the same thing that Vattel says. So that's right. That's also confirmed under the Naturalization Acts. Okay, now we've had many naturalization acts throughout the years. The first one was in 1790. Okay, and now that particular act is important when we look at Cruz, because that particular act talks about, apart from saying that children born in the United States to alien parents are aliens, okay? Now, that's very important, okay? Now, so in other words, it's excluding children born in the United States of alien parents as natural-born citizens. Not even citizens. How could you be a natural-born citizen? But then it said that if you were born outside the country to U.S. citizen parents, you were considered as a natural-born citizen. Now, that's very important, right? Because then some people say, oh, look, back in 1790, Congress, the first Congress said, if you're born out of the country to citizen parents. Now, it was both citizen parents, because they didn't have this notion of one citizen parent. Until 1924, in the United States, either you were both aliens or you were both citizens. There was no such thing as one parent being a citizen or an alien. People who were married. So what happens is, in that particular 1790 Act, Congress has considered as a natural-born citizen. However, in 1795, the Third Congress changed it with the work of John Madison and Washington. They said no. Just a citizen of the United States. That's very important because Article 2 says that you could be a citizen of the United States and be president if you were born before the adoption of the Constitution and you were a citizen. Okay? Right. After the adoption, you must be a natural-born citizen. Okay? That's very important to understand when we look at Senator Cruz because there's no law whatsoever which makes him a natural-born citizen. None. Okay, the closest he ever came to a natural-born citizen is, again, the 1790 Act, which was repealed. Now, when you look at the citizenship of a person, you have to apply the law that's in place at the time of birth. Okay, or
you're breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry?
You're breaking up a little. You're breaking up a little bit. You're losing your signal
a
little bit. I can hear you now. Yeah.
How about now?
That's much better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway. He was born in 1970. Okay.
Right.
Now, in 1970, there's no law that defines a natural-born citizen other than the common law that I referred to. Okay. The reason why Congress had to pass these naturalization acts is because the common law only made persons born in the country to citizen parents, citizen and a natural-born citizen. That was the common law. Even the English common law, you had to be born in the King's dominion in order to be a natural-born subject. Later on, Parliament passed statutes all throughout starting like even 1350. They called it ultramarres Parliament, statute, because the common law didn't consider you to be a citizen if you were born out of the kingdom. So we carried forward the same tradition there where Congress was given the power to naturalize in Article 1, and in anybody that's not born in the country, you need a statute by Congress, but it's a naturalization statute. And all the naturalization statutes that Congress has on the books, everything says citizen of the United States. That's it. Nobody is a natural-born citizen. The Constitution put into it the common law definition of a natural-born citizen. You can only change that with an amendment. You can't change that with a statute. There were no statutes in place when the Constitution was drafted. So, Congress couldn't make anybody a natural-born citizen. Congress wasn't even, in business yet, so to speak. So it was just a common law. Okay, so this is the problem that Senator Cruz has. He's a citizen of the United States at birth under 8 U.S.C. 1401G. Okay, his mother was here long enough. You had to be a resident. Physical presence. You needed physical presence for 10 years, and then 5 of those had to be after you were 14 years old. That particular law disqualifies Obama from being a citizen if he was born in Kenya. If Obama was born in Kenya, he's an alien. He's not even a citizen because his mother was not old enough. Now, with Cruz, it's different because his mother was here long enough. So he's a citizen of the United States at birth under an act of Congress, a naturalization act, not under the common law. And there's only one definition of a natural-born citizen, which is that under the common law, which I described to you. So that's why Mr. Cruz is not a citizen. He was born in Canada, so he's a Canadian citizen by birth. It's unbelievable that he just recently says he didn't know he was a Canadian citizen. I can't believe that. He went to Harvard Law School. He's a politician. He would be very sensitive as to his citizenship and so on and so forth. He knows where he was born. That's just totally incredible that he didn't know he was a Canadian citizen. And then he decides to renounce it, which doesn't change anything because it's the moment of birth that counts. So you can't be renouncing citizenships later on in your life. His father was Cuban, so he could actually be also a Cuban citizen under the Constitution of Cuba, which is Article 29. Basically says if one of your parents is a citizen of Cuba and you're born abroad, if the parent complies with the formalities of the law. Now, I'm not saying that his father complied with anything. I don't know, but potentially he could be a citizen of Cuba. We haven't heard anything about that, about him renouncing that. So he's got, he's got two nationalities. He's Canadian by birth, and he's also American by birth. Could be also Cuban. No way would the founding fathers have allowed somebody with two or three citizenships and allegiances acquired at birth to be a natural-born citizen, to lead, the United States on the military field, military camp, be the president. No way. Allegiance was everything to the founding fathers. Again, that's what made America, was allegiance, the revolution. Either you were with them or you were against them. They went all through that with allegiance. And it was because of the American Revolution which created the concept of voluntary allegiance, because at first you had to pick what side you wanted. It was a volitional choice. You had to consent. You made an election. Okay? Right. And then once that was done, you became a citizen of the United States by naturalization, through the Declaration of Independence, through adhering to the Revolution. So that now you became a parent, and your children followed your condition. Your children followed whatever election you made. And then that consent is handed down through the parents. So when the parents become citizens, they show their consent to be Americans, and that consent is passed to your children. That's why they're natural-born citizens, and the concept follows the American Revolution, how the founding fathers saw an American citizen totally different from a subject. A subject had no volition. You were a subject for life. With America, it was different. Your parents consented, and also when you turned 21 years old, you could change your citizenship. You didn't have to be an American. It was not perpetual allegiance like it was in Great Britain. So this is what some of the thoughts here that I'm sharing with you, and of course I'm going to give you a chance to ask me a question about it. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's breaking my heart. I really do like Ted Cruz very, very much. But, if there is a negative, we better find out about it now, because if he ever became the nominee, and anybody in their right mind would know that Hillary would not hesitate to use this, nor would anybody else. But, they're salivating at the opportunity for this. And back to Obama. No one ever even claimed his father was an American citizen. So, that's... When they do this with Ted Cruz, they're definitely going to be hypocrites. But they're also going to hold us to the same standard and saying, you're all complaining about Obama, even though we got nowhere with it. But, now that's going to cause a lot of people to have some second thoughts and maybe hold back on voting for Cruz and stick to their principles. So, if there's a negative out there, we have to know about it, whether we like it or not.
There's no word ever in our history from the U.S. Supreme Court that says that a person born out of the United States is a natural-born citizen. If you don't have an act of Congress in place, somebody born out of the United States is not even a citizen. And we've had that from 1802 to 1855. People born out of the United States were aliens. They were not even citizens. We had that. And then in 1855, they had to correct that. We even had it where... If Ted Cruz was born before 1934, he wouldn't even be a citizen, not even a citizen, because that's when the law was changed where the mother of the child could pass citizenship on to the child. Okay, right. So he's born to a U.S. citizen mother. Okay, now I'm not. Yes. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you got to be the father, you got to be the mother, because today under equal protection, the mother and father are equal. But, in the old days, again, it was both parents because they both became one, both citizens. But even under Congress's powers, they can decide anything they want. They can make you a citizen. They can unmake you a citizen. They can make you a citizen at birth, a citizen there. That's not a natural-born citizen. Just the word itself, natural-born citizen. It comes out of a natural law in the law of nations, and you don't need a positive law to make somebody a natural-born citizen. You don't need an act of Congress. Again, when the Constitution was passed, there was no acts of Congress. But still, you had people who were natural-born citizens. It's in the Constitution. which would have been the children born to citizens who became citizens, through the revolution. But again, there's no U.S. Supreme Court saying that anybody like Cruz is a natural-born citizen. There's no law on the books. Again, he was born in 1970. If you look at the law then, he's just a citizen of the United States. Under Article 2, that's not enough. I mean, he was born, after the adoption. So he's neither a citizen of the United States before the adoption nor a natural-born citizen. So he's not eligible. And again, the burden of proof is on him. He can't just sit back and create this. He's going to do like what Obama did. He's going to say, nobody's going to challenge me. Nobody can challenge me. The courts are going to protect me. Congress, they're going to be too scared to say anything because they don't want to be embarrassed and lose their big career, being a politician type thing. So, here we go again. Here we go again.
Well, they may not be as loyal to him as they were to Obama. But, so why do we need a resolution for McCain?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that makes my point. With McCain, okay, again, he was born out of the country. So people are saying, they're scratching their heads. You can't be born out of the country and be president. Because all through our nation history, you had to be a native-born citizen, native being, born in the country. But again, native in the constitutional sense, born in the country and the citizen parents. But, born in the country is a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition. Okay, It's necessary. Okay, so now they said, what about he's born, in Panama? Well, then, they played with that, saying, he was born on a base. He was still born in the United States, so to speak. They tried to make it though he was born in the United States. And then they said also, and he's also born to citizen parents. Now, that was a scholarly memorandum of law provided by two constitutional experts at the time, was it Tribe and Olson. A flawed analysis, because they relied on the 1790 Act. They never even admitted that it was repealed in 1795, which is unbelievable, because in 1795, again, Madison and Washington say, no, just a citizen of the United States, not a natural-born citizen. They said that they relied on the 1790 Act, which is absurd. But the point is that McCain is a natural-born citizen, not because of the reasons that was put forth by Congress there in that resolution, but because his parents were serving the military. And under the Law of Nations, Section 217 of the Law of Nations in Vattel, he explains when your parents are serving the military, you, the child born in that foreign country, to those parents, you're reputed born in your country. Reputed born. So McCain is reputed born in the United States. To citizen parents makes him the natural-born citizen. Now, what is Congress going to do with somebody like Senator Cruz? What, they're going to say he was born on a military base? I don't think that gets anywhere, right? Plus, he's only born to one citizen parent. He doesn't even come close to McCain's situation, not even close. So how can you justify that he's a natural-born citizen? He can't do it.
A good analogy, a good reflection could be, how these young girls are leaving to go over to the Middle East to marry off to ISIS people. If they have a baby, could that baby be president? That would be the same circumstances. An American mother, a foreign father, a baby born abroad. Could that baby be an American citizen? It's the same exact situation. It's just different.
Well, let me stop you, because you got to be careful when you say you said, can that baby be an American citizen? See, that's where the problem comes in.
You're right.
Yeah. The problem comes in is that and a lot of people say, of course he's a citizen. Talking about Ted Cruz, right? Of course he was a citizen. He was a citizen from the time he was born. Of course he's a natural-born citizen. The clause is natural-born citizen, not born citizen. It's a big difference. See, natural-born citizen is a word of art. It has only one meaning. It's under the common law, as confirmed by the unanimous Supreme Court in Minor. That's the only definition of it. Now, you could have all kinds of born citizens. The Congress can make born citizens, and that's what it did throughout the history of the United States. and sometimes you were a born citizen, sometimes you were an alien, and then they even put conditions on it, retention conditions, like, again, in the beginning, it was just your father it could be a citizen. Later on, they added the mother. Then they went to residence. When it was first created, your father had to just be a resident. Then later on, they said 10 years a resident, right? Then they went to 5 years a resident. So they changed all the conditions for being a citizen at birth. You don't do that with a natural-born citizen. A natural-born citizen has only one meaning. Congress doesn't go in and tinker with it and change it and put all these conditions on it. They don't have that power. They only have the power to naturalize. That's it. And that's a protection for a natural-born citizen, that Congress doesn't have the power to mess up your citizenship. I mean, the citizens made the Constitution, made the country. The Constitution and the country didn't make the citizens.
I see. Hey, you want to take a couple of calls? We have a few people with their hands raised. All right. Let me, all you people with the hands raised, I'm going to start taking you in order as the calling. So let me open up this one first, and then I'm going to screen this restricted call. If I can get this microphone open, of course. My thing doesn't want to be cooperative. Area code 239. You're live.
Hi, Mario. How are you doing tonight?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. I've been following it ever since you started it. I have two simple questions, actually a two-part question. Why do you believe this? First of all, we have no more rule of law in this country. It's done. There's been so many of these cases brought in front of every judge. These judges are all bought and paid for, in my opinion. Why hasn't the International Criminal Court stepped in? And why hasn't our military stepped in? We have provost marshals, we have sergeant of arms that have been put in place to stop this tyranny. Why is it being allowed to continue, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, the International Criminal Court, I doubt that they have jurisdiction over something like this. This is a national problem. It does have international implications because, our commander-in-chief, he's going to authorize force to be used. He's going to be, in effect, you're killing people, but of course you're doing it for the nation. But you would think that person has to be legitimate. Now, Obama, he's a de facto president. Okay, in my opinion, he's not a de jure. Okay, de jure means that you're constitutionally legitimate. De facto, because he's acting just like the president, and the world, they don't know. They say, "Oh yeah, President Obama." So you really got to get into the details of this to understand what's going on here. But so the International Court, Criminal Court, they don't have any jurisdiction over something like this. And then why is the military not doing anything? That's a very difficult thing. Now, we saw what happened with Terry Lakin. Okay, he tried to do something, and again, that's not an easy situation. Technically, you're given an order. You're supposed to follow an order. What do? Can you just disobey the order? Look what happened to him. And are we going to have a revolution type thing? Military coup? I mean, that's really going crazy. So what does the military do? They can't do anything. They're just. Plus, if one speaks out. That person's going to say, "Oh, why should I do it? I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to, I want to be a career officer. I want to maybe someday be, 5-star general. I mean, I'm not going to get anywhere by being branded a birther, which of course that's what the opposition does. They brand people. They give you a litmus test. Like if you want to be anything in politics. Oh, are you a birther? Oh, you're a birther. Okay, then all of a sudden, the opposition, they have it in the newspaper. Oh, he's a birther. So supposedly you're not going anywhere because you were a birther. You're like a kook. I mean, this is what we resort to here in the United States, the land of freedom of expression and where we're supposed to debate issues. But now there's a litmus test. If you're a birther, you can't be in public life. I mean, it's crazy. It really is. It's disgusting. It's really despicable.
Actually, I've studied that. I studied that about the military coup. The military cannot step in. It has to be us. If we were to uprise and we were to threaten to throw them all out of office, the military could support the people, but the military cannot initiate it because that would violate their constitutional oath. Did that make sense to you? Like Egypt. Egypt is a good example. You know, the Egyptian military couldn't just go up there and remove Mubarak. But when the people went to remove Mubarak, that's when the military could stand behind the people. Then it was legitimate. So it has to be the people
Another way that anything like that could ever be legitimate is if you go back to the American Revolution, and you know, how did the Patriots justify the revolution? Well, first they had to deal with Parliament, and they said, look, you know, Parliament does not control us. They're not our representatives. Okay, so they were able to say that they were not under the control of Parliament. But then they had the king. The king was different because they had allegiance to the king. And then they had to justify, well, how do we, you know, get rid of the king? And they studied natural law. They studied the law of nations, and they said, you know, if the king no longer gives you protection, then you're allowed to break away from the king, no longer have allegiance to the king, and you can actually set up your own, you know, your own society, your own government, and so on and so forth. So that's exactly what happened. And then, of course, you know, they showed how the king no longer gave the colonists protection, but all, you know, the Declaration of Independence, all the acts and everything, and they said, look, you don't, you know, we give you allegiance if you give us protection. Okay, it's a contract. Okay, so the contract was broken by George III, and so they broke their allegiance. So that, you know,
Mr.
and then, of course, the rest is history.
You're brilliant. You can't give you protection. How's that open border working out? He's not providing protection.
Okay,
we have all these illegal aliens.
Okay, but don't forget now, the Declaration of Independence had a whole list of things. Okay, and it's interesting how Jefferson starts out. He says, you know, these things, you know, people usually suffer so many acts of tyranny, and they just kind of like put up with it, you know. And basically he says, well, look, you know, I mean, we can't put up with it anymore. There's so many. You know, even though, you know, we suffer in silence and we just put up with all these things, you know, abuse of power, but then there comes a point, a tipping point, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back. But when do you get to that? I mean, what is that? You know, I mean, okay, the American Revolution, they got to that, but I'm not saying that I'm not advocating anything like that, you know. But I'm just giving you the legal theory, the philosophical, you know, political theory, which you know caused the American Revolution and how they came up with it.
Well, that's awesome. Caller, did he answer your questions? Because we have to take another call here.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit. If we cannot get remedy, according to common law, there has to be an injury in order for there to be a crime. Well, all the American people are being injured on a daily basis. If we can't get remedy in the U.S. court, don't we have to go internationally?
No.
Yeah, but then you still have the problem of jurisdiction.
Right.
You see, you know, an international court, yeah, they have their jurisdiction, just like all our courts have jurisdiction. Especially the federal courts, they're very strict with jurisdiction. And then there's different aspects of jurisdiction. There's standing comes under that. Okay, now if you don't have standing, the court doesn't have jurisdiction. So jurisdiction is very, very important in the legal system. The states are more lax with that. Like they're more lax with standing. You know, basically, if you have just any kind of an injury, like a stake, some kind of a stake in the outcome, you have standing in the state courts. In the federal courts, they have a much more structured test for it. So you got to have jurisdiction. And even though we're being harmed here, now if some kind of treaty was being violated, an international treaty on human rights, okay, genocide or some thrown in prison without any type of due process. You know, you could make an international human rights argument, and then an international tribunal could have jurisdiction over something like that. But whether the president is eligible or not, I don't know. I don't think you could argue that's a civil right. I mean, it's a civil right in a sense, but not in the international jurisdiction sense, in the sense of how we use it today, civil right. Like religious, race, nationality, sexual orientation, that sort of thing. So you might have a problem with that.
Well, all right, caller. Thank you very much for calling in, and I hope he answered your question.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, dear. All right, we're going to move on to another caller, and you happen to know this person, Mr. Apuzzo. I talked to her while you guys were talking. If I can open up her microphone. All right, Martha, you're live.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Joanne. Hi, Mario. It's Martha Trowbridge.
Oh, hi, Martha. How you doing?
I just had to call in to tell you how much we miss you.
Oh, I appreciate that, Martha. It's been a long time since you and I spoke.
Oh, I know, and I'm not kidding. At least every few weeks somebody asks me, what happened to Mario?
What group are you from, Martha?
Well, I'm an investigative researcher. I run the Terrible Truth blog. I also work with Mike Boland at Where's Obama's Birth Certificate, and I've been the radio producer for Eric Rush Full Contact Radio Show for about a year and a half. So I'm
nice.
a busy bee. Yes. But Mario, you've got to. I hope you'll come off sabbatical soon because we need you back in the trenches.
Yes. Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to share my my learning that I've gained over these years, and anybody has any questions or anything, I'm very happy to address them, and that sort of thing.
Great. Well,
Wonderful.
I like your idea about the treaty violation angle, because I bet if we all put our heads together, we could figure out how international treaties are being violated by AKA Obama, and maybe we can approach it from that angle.
Yeah, if you can find a treaty violation, and then, of course, you have to look to see who enforces the treaty, an international tribunal, and then, of course, you would have a cause of action, so to speak. The court would have jurisdiction, and they could actually rule on it.
Well, what about this whole funding of terrorism that he's been doing? There's a wonderful, Joanne, I don't know if you've heard of him, a lieutenant in the Army, a whistleblower, Scott Bennett, who identified CIA accounts funding terrorists, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS. He's a whistleblower. He went to Congress. Nobody would listen to him. He reported it up the ranks, and when he made too much noise, AKA Obama had him thrown in federal prison. He's got an amazing story, Joanne. You might want to have him on sometime. Scott Bennett is his name, and if anybody's interested, I can get his information. He has absolute proof that this administration's been funding the terrorists who are sworn enemies of the United States. So I don't know if that's something that would apply, Mario, if you think that might.
Well, here's some food for thought. When you think back to the Constitution and the making of America, in the old days, so to speak, I mean, it's hard to imagine that we could have an agency of the government, which today we call the CIA, that it operates in this secrecy, and it keeps us guessing. I mean, everything is like, oh, did the CIA do it? Did they didn't do it? Were they responsible for that? Or are they behind this thing? And the American people, I mean, we've gotten to a situation now, and for the sake of national security, I mean, CIA is supposed to protect us, right? But who knows what they're doing? Nobody knows anybody. They're doing operations in these foreign countries. We don't know. Okay, like today, we've got all these things going on. Oh, well, they're working for the bad guys. No, they're working for the good guys. Nobody. Can you imagine? We don't even know whether our government is who they're working for. I mean, it's just the most mind-boggling situation we're in.
Well, it goes back to the CIA being founded after World War II and our government employing very high-level senior Nazis in the formation of the CIA. So since the late 40s, this is when we started getting into serious secrecy, clandestine, wicked activities, if you don't mind my saying so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna
where's
have to.
the transparency? You know.
Mhm.
We're gonna have to cut this short, but I just wanted to bring something up about a treaty. The other day I read that the United States Embassy in Israel were arming guards to go to Palestine for a meeting, and that violated a treaty that they had with Israel not to arm the Palestinians. So that might be something to look into too.
Yes, I think we can find them over and over. Did you know that Hillary Clinton's State Department was funding the Muslim Brotherhood out of the U.S. Embassy in Egypt, in Cairo?
Absolutely,
I mean,
we did. Yes, we did.
Yes, I mean, we could make a laundry list. And so this may be something we could all put together and see what we could do with it.
All right, Martha, I'm going to have to cut you off here.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne and Mario. Thank you. God bless you all.
Yeah, Martha, friend me over at Facebook. My name, Joanne Moretti.
I sure will. Okay. Thank you, and good night. Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Martha.
All right, Mario,
Bye-bye.
we're running out of time. We're running out of time here, and I want to just thank you so much. Is there any closing comments that you have for our guests before we end the show?
Well, I guess my closing comment would be to read, to study this particular area. There's a wealth of information on it, a ton of information on the Internet. I mean, we've had so many citizen patriots researching, writing. There's a ton of information, and keep your mind open, do the research, make your conclusion. And I think that when you do that, you'll come to the conclusion as to what a natural-born citizen is, and that Mr. Obama is not a natural-born citizen, neither is Ted Cruz, and neither are Marco Rubio and Jindal and Nikki Haley. They were born in the United States to non-citizen parents. They're not natural-born citizens either. So, again, do the research, study, and you should come to the right conclusion.
And on that note, I want to thank you very, very much for being our guest. And this show archives at the same link. Each show has its own link. So as soon as this show ends, just click the link again and it will begin all over. All right. Thank you very, very much, Mario, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Joanne. It's a pleasure to be with you.
The pleasure was all ours. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have. And we want to thank you for tuning in. We want to thank our wonderful guest, Mario Apuzzo. We want to thank all of our callers, our colleagues.